There comes a time in your life when God says, "Be still." Not because He has forgotten you, but because He's preparing something inside of you that requires silence, not noise. We live in a world full of distractions. Everyone's talking, posting, comparing, competing. But the truth is, you cannot hear divine direction in a crowded room. Sometimes, the greatest instruction from heaven is, focus on yourself, stay silent, and let me work. Silence is not weakness, it's wisdom. When you learn to stay quiet, you give God room to speak. You allow your spirit to breathe. Because in stillness, you discover what truly matters, and most of all, you discover you. Keycap 1. Focus is a form of faith. When God tells you to focus on yourself, He's not asking you to be selfish. He's asking you to be strategic. He's saying, stop chasing everything and start building something. Focus means believing that what's in your hands is enough. It's understanding that you don't need to run after validation or approval. You just need to develop what He already placed inside you. Distraction is the enemy of destiny. Every time you compare your journey to someone else's, you waste the energy that could have built your own. You cannot build your purpose while watching everyone else's progress. When you focus, you feed what matters. You protect your peace. You start growing in silence instead of performing for attention. God doesn't bless noise, He blesses discipline. And when you give Him your focus, He gives you direction. You don't always need to explain what you're doing, who you're becoming, or what God is showing you. Because silence is not the absence of activity, it's the presence of purpose. Some blessings are too sacred to announce. Some dreams are too fragile to expose too early. When God is shaping you, He often hides you. He'll pull you away from the crowd so your roots can grow deep before your branches spread wide. In silence, you build without interruption. You pray without performance. You hear what others miss, because you're not distracted by their noise. When you stop talking and start listening, you realize God never stopped speaking. We just stopped being quiet enough to hear Him. Keycap 4. Growth requires separation. Not everyone can go where you're going. When God calls you to focus on yourself, He's also calling you to separate from what drains you. You can't hear destiny clearly when you're surrounded by distraction. There are people, habits, and environments that were good for your last season but dangerous for your next one. Letting go doesn't mean you hate them. It means you honor what God is doing in you. Growth demands space. Sometimes God will empty your surroundings so He can fill your spirit. And until you learn to be comfortable being alone, you'll never discover the strength that comes from divine companionship. Because when everyone leaves, He stays. And when He stays, you never truly walk alone. Keycap 5. God works in silence, then reveals in power. God's greatest miracles often happen in quiet rooms. He created the universe without an audience. He raised His Son before the world understood what happened. So don't mistake silence for absence. While you're waiting, He's working. While you're focusing, He's forming. While you're quiet, He's qualifying you. Then, when the time is right, what was once private becomes public, not because you announced it, but because God revealed it. That's why you must protect your process. Stay humble, stay hidden, stay holy. And let the results speak for you. When it's all said and done, it wasn't wasted time. It was sacred time. Because in that silence, God was not only preparing your blessing, He was preparing you. So if you're in a quiet season right now, don't panic. Focus on yourself. Stay silent. Trust the process. Because the same God who called you into the wilderness will bring you out stronger, wiser, and ready for the promise. Remember this: you don't need to announce what God is about to do. He will make the announcement himself. Focus is a form of faith. When God tells you to focus on yourself, He's not telling you to be selfish. He's teaching you the discipline of direction. Most people never see the fullness of what God promised because they spend their lives looking left and right, trying to match their pace with others. But faith doesn't follow trends, it follows truth. Focus is the highest expression of faith because it means you trust that what God placed in your hands is enough. You don't need to compete. You don't need to compare. You just need to complete. When you focus on your purpose, you demonstrate belief that God didn't make a mistake when He created you. Every time you allow distraction to take your attention, you delay your destiny. That's why the enemy doesn't need to destroy you. He just needs to distract you. If he can keep you chasing approval, comparing your progress, or doubting your worth, he's already won half the battle. Focus requires faith. Faith to stay in your lane when everyone else is speeding in theirs. Faith to believe that silence doesn't mean stagnation. Faith to trust that when it's your season, no one can take your place. So when God says, focus on yourself, He's not pulling you away from people. He's pulling you closer to purpose. Because until you focus, you can't be fruitful. And when you finally learn to focus in faith, your life stops being a reaction and starts becoming a revelation. Preparation happens in private. Every public victory begins with a private decision. God never sends someone to the battlefield who hasn't first been trained in the quiet room. The world only sees the success, but heaven saw the discipline. We live in a generation that wants visibility without preparation. People want the platform but not the process. But God will not promote what He hasn't prepared. He will take you through isolation, through long nights, through hidden seasons, not to punish you, but to strengthen what He's about to display. When you feel unseen, it's not rejection, it's construction. You're being developed for something greater. The soil must stay dark before the seed can sprout. Likewise, your preparation happens in a place no one applauds. It's in the unseen hours of study, prayer, and obedience that character is built. Because when the lights finally shine, it's too late to start preparing. You either have it or you don't. So don't rush your quiet season. Learn in it. Grow in it. Refine your habits, sharpen your spirit, and build discipline. Because when God says it's time, your preparation will speak louder than your words ever could. Silence is the secret place of strength. There's a sacred power in silence, a kind of peace the world can't understand. You see, when you stop talking so much about your next move, you give space for God to move. Not every vision is meant to be announced, some are meant to be developed quietly. Silence is where you recharge your spirit and refine your vision. It's not about doing nothing, it's about doing the right thing without broadcasting it. In silence, you become stable. You stop needing validation. You stop defending yourself. You stop explaining what only time will reveal. The greatest strength is not in shouting your goals, it's in working quietly while others wonder what you're up to. Because God doesn't build noise, He builds depth. And depth takes stillness. When you are silent, your spirit starts hearing what your ears couldn't. You begin to recognize God's whispers, the ideas, the warnings, the encouragement that the noise around you once drowned out. So the next time people question your quiet season, just smile. Tell them, I'm not hiding, I'm being built. Because strength formed in silence cannot be shaken by sound. Growth requires separation. Every new season requires space. You cannot step into tomorrow while holding on to yesterday. When God begins to grow you, He will often separate you, not because others are bad, but because your purpose now requires clarity. Separation feels painful because we crave connection, but not every connection is covenant. Some people were assigned to your past, not your promise. If God removes them, it's because their part in your story has ended. Growth always costs comfort. It may cost friends, habits, or environments that once felt safe. But if it no longer serves your spirit, it's time to let go. Because what God is preparing you for cannot be carried with unnecessary weight. When you finally embrace separation as growth, you start to see it differently. You stop asking, "Why are they gone?" and start thanking God that He made room for what's next. Real maturity is when you understand that isolation is not abandonment, it's alignment. God isolates who He intends to elevate. And when the separation is complete, your elevation will speak for itself. God works in silence, then reveals in power. When God is working, He doesn't always make noise. He doesn't need to announce His moves. He simply manifests them. Look at creation, the stars, the oceans, the mountains. All of it was formed in silence. So when your life feels quiet, don't assume nothing is happening. Silence is often the sound of construction. God is arranging, aligning, and assembling the pieces of your promise. He's removing what would harm you and preparing what will help you. He hides you not to humiliate you, but to prepare you. Because when He finally reveals what He's been doing, it will be undeniable. People will look at your life and say, "When did that happen?" And you'll smile. Because you know, it happened in silence. God never rushes. He doesn't need to prove anything. His timing is always perfect, His process always intentional. And when He reveals you, it won't be for applause, it will be for impact. So don't fear the quiet. Don't curse the stillness. Because silence is not the end, it's the setup. The God who hides in the shadows is the same God who reveals in glory. And when your season comes, you won't need to explain anything. Your results will speak the language of heaven.